Okay, we're recording. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending this meeting tonight. And really what I wanted to kick off is to introduce myself and for you to introduce yourself, which I know you're already doing that. I'm starting to see some posts already. But to enlighten you on a few things when it comes to this course. But first and foremost, this excuse me, this should be your last course. This is the Capstone Business 670 course. This is what we call the compressed version, meaning that you'll get the theory as well as have the opportunity to do the practical application of that theory in a project that you're going to go out and review, a case company, actual company you go out and review, and to develop a PowerPoint presentation. So if this was not the course that if this is not your last course, if you were thinking this was the Business 670, the theory part, and you still had the practical application part of Business 671, then please shoot me an email. Let me know that, and I'll work with Mr. Robert Barnes to make sure we get you transferred over into the right Business 670. But I'm going to take it that for tonight, everyone is in the right Business 670, and this is your last class in the MBA program, and you're moving towards graduation in August.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm not hearing a lot of no, not me. That's good. Okay, well, that's the good news. The other piece of the good news, strap on your running shoes because we're going to be running hard for 6 weeks. In week number 7 is going to be the presentations week. So with 4 teams, it'll be a pretty full week as well. So you really have 6 weeks to get through the project and get it developed and to get your PowerPoint presentation. Now, it's not going to be uncommon for you to have a PowerPoint presentation that could be in excess of 100 slides. I would anticipate that to be somewhere in that range, if not more. I would also anticipate that you probably would count on an hour and a half to an hour and 45 minutes per team to do your presentation, and that presentation is going to be in the very same format that we're doing here using Zoom, and that in that presentation everyone will have the opportunity to be a part of that presentation. Very fortunate for us that the teams have been formed, the companies have already been selected, and I have forwarded you some information with reference to the value line that we want you to use to do part of the financials. It's not the only information you could use about financials, but it is a significant piece, and we'll talk about that here momentarily. Now, I'm not planning on going over the Moodle shell unless someone has a specific question about the Moodle shell. Okay, but I did want to cover a few things in the Moodle shell, so let me share my screen. Hopefully you can see my screen now.
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
So very good, thank you. So what I have set up is that, and I'm going to recommend that whether you use this platform or whether you use some other platform, that your team meets at least once a week. And I think you're going to find that to be extremely beneficial, because a lot of this information that you're going to be gathering up to do this project is really going to overlap from one section to another. And we're going to go over that particular project and you'll see what I'm talking about. But what I'm going to request that you do, if you want to use the Zoom meeting link, just like you're using tonight, send me an email. I will come in here and I will put in your request so that everyone else will know when the Zoom link is going to be tied up. So I would recommend that you use the Zoom or some other video platform or some other way to meet so that you can discuss your project, but equally important that you can practice when you get year 5, week 6, especially into week 7, when you get, so you can do a little bit of practice time. in making your presentation. You should also consider me part of your team and include me in some of your discussions. And I will tell you with great certainty that if you wait to week 5 to get me involved, you're a little late. You're a little late. So I would do that earlier rather than later to ensure that you're on the right track, that you're going in the right direction, because it's a lot of information. And really, ladies and gentlemen, you really don't have time to let it drag out. And what I mean by that is that, again, if you're waiting until week 5 to start gathering this information, you're going to be woefully behind. And I will be pushing on you hard to see where you are and to make sure that you are on track, because it's my goal to see each and every one of you be successful in this program. And with that, so if you send me your Zoom meeting request, like we've done everything else, first come, first serve, we'll get that posted. And when we get into week 7, when we get ready to do the presentations, very same way, whoever wants to go first come, first serve, I would recommend that you start those presentations probably, after 7:30 to give those who are working during the day a time getting home and get supper and all that, take care of their families. Because again, it's going to take about an hour and a half, hour to 45 minutes. Trying to do 2 of them in the same night would be extremely aggressive. I'm okay with being aggressive if that's what we need to do to get everyone through. So don't hesitate with that either. I also set up team forums. Team forums, that's a opportunity for you in each week that if you want to communicate with your team, that is for you. I will typically go look to see if anyone's asking me a question, but if I don't see anyone asking me a question, then unless I see something that I need to respond to, I typically don't respond unless you're specifically addressing that to me. I really created that to give you an opportunity to share information and a way to communicate with each other more so than me. My best way to catch me is either going to be via email or on my cell phone. And my cell phone number is 910-512-1739. That's 910-512-1739. And I grew up in the commercial nuclear generation business, so I do everything with a sense of urgency. I'm one of those that I monitor stuff all the way up to the time I go to bed, so don't hesitate to shoot me a question and I will get you feedback. And speaking of feedback, on everything that you submit in this class, every written assignment that you have, you will get feedback on every one of those written assignments. And this is a class where it's pretty aggressive, very aggressive 7 weeks. You got a lot of stuff to learn about theory. Then we're going to apply that theory in doing the project. So you want to do something in this class every single day. You do not want to wait till Friday thinking that you can get the lecture quizzes done, the chapter quizzes done, and do the writing assignments as well. It's just too much. It's a lot of work to do. So please do something each and every day as you work in this class. We already talked about meeting with your teams. And another reason why you want to use this Zoom platform and how you're going to be communicating, building your project. If you have any technical difficulties, now would be the time to get those sorted out before you get into the presentation. And again, I would consider me a member of your team, and I would at least for the first one, as you get started, include me. Give me the opportunity to make sure you get started off on the right track, and any other times as you see necessary to add me to that. Any questions so far?
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
The team groups, would you rather us discuss what we're discussing in there, or is it okay for us to do it all via email?
That's entirely up to you.
Okay.
You can do it any way you want to do it. I would strongly recommend that you over communicate rather than under communicate, and you meet often rather than less.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All this information here is that's for your team, for you to discuss anything, or if you rather do it some other platform, that's entirely up to you. Does someone else have a question? Okay, so when you get ready to, we're using a lot of Dr. Roney. He's our subject matter expert in this particular topic, and he's graciously agreed to allow me to use some of his stuff. So some of the lectures, especially these lectures, one way I would look at that would be look at the video, and then as you're watching the video on his lecture, take good notes. And it's about the integration of what you have learned. It's not so much about that there's going to be a test question that's going to say, if I go to this slide, I'll see this test question, and there's the easy button. This course is not set up like that. This entire course is really set up for you to step back, take a in-depth, integrated look as you respond to the test questions, and as well as you respond to the writing assignments. So it's really about the integration of the knowledge that you have all the way up to this point. This is the reason why it's a capstone course. Also, when we get down here in week 7, and week 7 is not completely built yet, but now that we have the teams assigned, when we get into week 7, each one of you will be making your presentation per team. Each team will have a discussion questions that you'll have to address based on your case and your case only. When we get into the final exam will be a comprehensive exam of every team's information that they presented. And when you get into the final exam, very quickly what you should see is going to be that when I set the exam up, the exam should be very clear as to which questions goes with which team that is presenting. Like the 3M, we're not doing new course. As you can see, I've got some work to do for this final exam. We are doing PepsiCo, and we're not doing Harley-Davidson. But you'll see the test questions will look just like that, so it should be very clear as to which test questions goes with which case. But your final exam will be comprehensive, and it will include everyone's case presentation directly from their PowerPoint slides. But your discussion questions in week 7, you'll respond to those only for your case. And we will get into more in depth in that when we get closer into week 7. What I also provided, I think I put that, let me see, where did I put it? Yes, here it is. Here's 2 examples, Harley-Davidson and FedEx, pretty good examples of what those teams did at that time that they did theirs. Now, obviously, some of the information has changed since then, but at least it gives you a format, a framework to which to work from, so you can see what other people have done as well. Also, sent everyone a copy of your value line report. Here's an example of Harley-Davidson, and in Harley-Davidson, excuse me, Harley-Davidson, what we highlighted here in orange, and I'll make sure I get this posted up to the Moodle shell tonight. But what I want you to see here is the information that we're going to be using from Value Line as we get ready to build some of your financial data. And I'll come back to some of that financial data here momentarily. But what I have highlighted here is the information that we have: the sales or revenue, we have the operating margin, we have long-term debt, we have shareholder equity, then we have return on total capital and return on shareholder equity. And the ROE is return on shareholder equity, and the ROI is the return on investment. But I'll get this posted for you. But this is the only information that you're going to be using from the value line. Now, when you get ready to do some of your competitor analysis, if you need more value line information, if you would let me know, I will gladly go out and grab that value line information for you, because this is, I have a source that I get this from. Unless you have access to value line, that works as well. But if not, please let me know, and I'll make sure I get you that information. So how are you going to use this information? I know you're asking that question. So you're going to take that information and you're going to turn it into this information here. This is this says PepsiCo, but it's actually Harley-Davidson. It's actually Harley-Davidson information. But you're going to take that value line information and you're just going to fill in the blanks. And I have it set up where some of this stuff does the automatic calculations for you, especially over here. As you can see, when you click into the cell addresses, you see the formulas. So if you take out any of this information here, that's fine. Just be careful over here, unless you want to go back and rebuild that, and that's fine too. But what you also have here is the long-term debt and equity. That's just information that you're going to insert. The total capital is the sum of the long-term debt and the equity, and the leverage. And leverage is a measure of financial stability of the company. And you see that that's a calculation of taking capital and dividing it into long-term debt. And when we change anything, these charts down here are the charts that you're actually going to build and insert into your PowerPoint presentation. So you'll see that, I think in week 3 or week 4, a presentation as well as a video about how to go out and do this and be able to create this same information here. But if you get to that point and you need assistance, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you as we go through this project collectively. But I'll get this information, this value line information, posted out to Moodle today. So let's talk about the paper, the project. You're not doing a formal paper, you're doing a PowerPoint presentation. And in that PowerPoint presentation, you want to make sure that you follow these key points that are listed in this outline. And in this information, it's about the integration of that information and how you're interpreting that information. So let me come back here just for a moment. And I know I'm giving you a lot of information here, and you probably will have some questions, and that's fine. If I don't address them tonight, please don't hesitate to shoot me an email, and we will certainly address those questions. But follow the outline. Excuse me. Follow the outline and make sure you touch on those points that are applicable to your particular case. There's some of those that will not be applicable, especially when we talk about motorcycles, but for the car piece of it, it would be. And I thought that would come up quicker. So while that's pulling up, so this is what I mean about how, when you're looking at this information, using this value line as an example. In the key events of the company's history, that's not a year-by-year type of key events. It's really about those things that define that company. Typically, they got started here. They became a global company here. They done this here. It's not a detailed analysis of that company, detailed history, as much as it is those key events that the team feels like is what made that company what it is today. the current lines of products or services is just that. And in some of your companies like 3M, 3M is a company of small. I say that from the standpoint that when you get into reviewing 3M, you're going to see 3M has got its tentacles everywhere. It's got so much, it's in so many different products. So you're going to have to be creative and not list out every product per se, but the type of products that they supply to industry and not each and every product. The term social contract is, as you know, what you have learned that a company today has an obligation to get a good rate of return for its stakeholders. So it's there to make a profit or to generate revenue to get a good rate of return. The other piece that we tend to forget is this thing called social contract. Every one of these companies should have a social responsibility not to do any harm to the employees, not to do any harm to the environment, not to do any harm in the country in which they're operating in, not to violate any rules, do anything unethical. But it's really about that economic benefit that that company is offering to society in general. So that's the second piece of what a company is supposed to do. And using Abel's model, I think you'll find that to be pretty straightforward. But this is really what I want to get into. This is what I recommend. I know a lot of people will just look at this and say, okay, I'll take section 1. Nick, you take section 2. Shannon, you take section 3. And that is a good starting point. But I would come back to you and say, okay, this is where if you choose to go that way, that's fine. But make sure that your team is meeting on a regular basis, because what you're going to see is some of the information that we're using here in the environmental section will be displayed in a subsequent section. But the interpretation of that data from section to section will be different. That makes sense. Hopefully it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. I think you'll find that if you're meeting collectively on a periodic basis, I think you'll see what I'm talking about. Or another way may be to do it would be, okay, someone go out and do the economic assessment and the consumer economic indicators. Someone focus on that. You're going to use the Federal Reserve, FRED, F-R-E-D, Federal Reserve Economic Database, where you get a lot of the economic data from. You're going to use the International Monetary Fund to get some of these GDP data, the market growth rate, poverty rates, things of that importance. The industrial economic indicators for that particular country in which you're operating in. And what you have to decide as you build your project is that your company probably will have revenue coming from multiple sources, but it won't have, you probably will have more revenue from a specific region or specific country more so than all over the map. So what you want to do is that in these economic indicators as a team, you're going to want to pick your base country, which typically most people will pick the United States as their base country, and then they will pick several other countries to which that company operates in, or where they have a lot of their market share, or where they get a lot of their revenue from, or where they sell a lot of their products if they're geographically distributed, and do it that way when you do this analysis. And why is this important? Let's think about it just for a moment. Think about unemployment rates. If the unemployment rate is low, what is that an indication of economically, you think?
Economic prosperity.
Economic prosperity. And who's prospering from that? Harry?
Consumers and companies.
Consumers and companies, exactly right. If the unemployment rate is low, that's and if you had that unemployment rate going down like this, and you see consumer confidence in the economy going up like this, and you see industrial output going up like this, you see savings rate going down, you see consumer spending going up, all of that is an indication that that economy of that particular country is doing pretty good, which means consumers like you and I have disposable income. And with that disposable income, we're using that income to go out and buy the Harley Davidson motorcycles. We're going out and replacing our our cars with Toyotas. So we're spending that money. When the unemployment rate, let me use PepsiCo, because PepsiCo is one of those companies where it's a commodity item that is not a necessity, but can almost be considered as a luxury. But we're hungry for those salty snacks and those drinks and that water, especially those sport beverages as well. But it's really a commodity. And when the economy is bad, when unemployment rate is up, savings rate is down, or savings rate is up because people are saving money because they're unemployed, they're not going to go out. They may not go out and buy salty snacks. That may be one of the things that they would do without as they pay for the necessities of life. In fact, back during the 06, 07, 08 time frame when we were in the recession, the one item that seemed to have did not decrease was adult beverages, of all things. I don't know if that's an indication that people were just so depressed that they were going to drink, or if it was they were just rejoicing. I don't know what it was, but in any way, that was one of those things that you didn't really see a dip in consumer spending when it came to adult beverages. But this is how this stuff kind of integrates. This is how we can talk about disposable income here and compare it to another country to see how economically what's going to be the potential market growth. Anytime you're talking about market analysis, it's always about demographics. What's the population growth rate? Where's the population coming from? What's the projection of that growth rate? If you think about, nobody's doing Harley Davidson, but Harley Davidson for a long time was white Caucasian baby boomers. Well, that's me. In my age group, we are retiring in groves, and riding a Harley Davidson is a great thing for some folks. However, a lot of us now are more concerned with healthcare, rising healthcare costs. So that's a demographic shift that Harley Davidson has got to respond to. Toyota is really going after the millennial market and those that really has a very strong consciousness when it comes to environmental friendly vehicles. PepsiCo is trying to make their snacks and their soft drinks more healthy. And why is that? Because in the United States, we're the most obese people in the entire world. And when you have obesity rates that's increasing, you have healthcare costs that's increasing, you have lost productivity, you have that bottom line that's affecting that company. So this is kind of how all this stuff has kind of got to integrate. And certainly Ford just announced this within the last 2 weeks, Ford Motor Company, that they are on the verge of stopping the manufacturing of their sedans like the Ford Taurus, the Ford Fusion, those sedan vehicles, and they're building more trucks, and they're going to be building more crossover vehicles. So if I think about that, if Ford is doing that, then what is Toyota going to do to help to respond to what one of their competitors is doing? So that was an interesting thing for me. And certainly electrical vehicle trends. Toyota is big into that. But, here in the United States, how many charging stations do you see here in the United States? Not a lot.
Not a lot.
Not a lot. A little bit over 16 or 17,000, I believe, throughout the United States. There's not a lot. Here in the United States, we've not really bought into this, not really embraced it per se here in our country as they do in some foreign countries. I think France is moving, England is moving to be no gas vehicles by 2030. And even here in the world, there was predictions that by 2030 that the demand for gasoline will actually have peaked and start falling because of the increased emission government regulations to those automobile manufacturers to decrease their CO2 footprint because of global warming, and how they're going to increase their miles per gallon, things of that nature. But by increasing their miles per gallon it's a great thing, because all of us as consumers, we want to have better, more fuel efficient, cleaner burning, less gas guzzling vehicles. But the other side of that coin is that where do we get the majority of our infrastructure money to improve our roads? State and federal gas tax. So if we increase the miles per gallon, I mean you and I are burning less gas, the peak of gas is going down. How are we going to make up that shortfall? Interesting phenomenon. Interesting phenomenon. But here in the United States, we're not really embraced it as much as some of the foreign countries. And here in the United States, we just still like big stuff. That's just who we are. So let's talk about your industry. This is where you're going to be comparing this information here that you saw on that Excel spreadsheet that you're going to get from the value line, and it's going to be specific to that company that you are researching, and it's going to be recent trends, meaning up to now that we're in 2018. I could probably move these over a little bit, but it's going to be this recent trend here. So you're going to be discussing that and trying to interpret why are these things moving the way they're moving. 2009 for this particular company, I mean, Harley borrowed a lot of money. They were in the ditch coming out of the recession because motorcycles is a luxury item. It's not a requirement, not here in this country, because we have so many different substitutes of transportation, where in some other countries, the motorcycle is a way of life. However, a big Road King works good here in the open highway on Interstate 40, but not downtown Tokyo, or not in India where they don't have a lot of paved roads. So that's one reason why Harley Davidson really got themselves in a jam. But you're going to talk about that here. Then down in this section, we're going to talk about it again, using the very same information in their capability analysis. Then you're going to talk about it again, looking 5 years down the road. This is where we're going to be using this information here that we projected out based on these calculations here. So this is where you may want to consider having someone who's going to go out and get this information and build this information and look at it from a competitive standpoint, to focus solely on this. If you don't do it that way, if you still want to go with sessions, that's fine. Just make sure that, again, that you meet a lot, because this information is going to be repeating. So this is the 5-year look ahead. I believe this one is looking at the current trends. And this one, I believe, is looking at the industry or the competitive analysis, where you're using some of this very similar data to compare it to some of your competitors. So you're kind of using it in 3 different locations. But when you get ready to start your project, consider that the demographics is a significant piece, the economic data is a significant piece, and the financial piece of it and doing the comparative analysis is the significant piece of it. Now, this is a lot of information that we talked about, and you're going to see that as you build your project, you're going to talk about, there's going to be videos, there's going to be lectures, there's going to be presentation that's going to cover some of these very same sections. And certainly you can always contact me and provide me the opportunity to help you as well. Okay, so that's really what I want to talk about there. Here's that example of Harley Davidson that I wanted to go over. Now, I'm not going to go over everything, but as you can see how they got started, and they talked about this is kind of a broad brush history of Harley Davidson. It's not a detail by month, by year. This is everything that we've ever done. It's just a broad brush type of history. And you can see where their revenue is coming from. I mean, their revenue is coming from motorcycle sales and service. That's where the majority of their revenue is coming from. And Harley Davidson is one of those that's been in the ditch. They're losing market share like crazy because of the my generation not really buying into motorcycles anymore because we're doing other things, and where now they've really got to look at the younger generation and redo their motorcycles. In fact, I just saw something that came across a week ago as well, where Harley Davidson's on the verge of releasing one of their very first electric motorcycles that's really targeted to the millennial rider and the female rider, those that are socially, environmentally conscious. And what I'm looking for is the some of the financial information. Here it is. So here's some of the economic data, and you can get this as well. It's out there available to you. This is coming from the World Economic International Monetary Fund, and what they chose to do is this is the countries that they are comparing their company to, with the United States being their base. Here's the GDP data that comes from the International Monetary Fund. World population, if they can do their market analysis. Then we get into some of the other FRED information. Again, disposable income. And why is disposable income important? Is because it gives, once you and I as consumers get past the necessities of life, then we have this disposable income to buy some of those goods that we, toys and snacks and things of that nature. And just like car trends and motorcycle trends, trends is always good. And here we get into some of the additional financial trends that come directly from the value line. So, was anything else in here? Okay.
Would it be possible for you to send out the links for those financial websites you were talking about?
I think what you're going to find out is that the links are already here.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah. When you start going through the information on a weekly basis, you're going to find some of that information here. The sources of the environmental assessment trends.
Okay, I got you. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So I think you'll already find that information there, and I hope I didn't overload you with too much information, but don't focus on all of it. Take it week by week, and we should be fine. If you work ahead, that's fine too. But you see that the Moodle shell is a little busy, but it's busy because I included so much content into it to make sure that you have what you needed as you move forward in building your project, as well as responding to the mini cases and to the quizzes. I have everything due on Sunday. I would not recommend waiting till Sunday to get everything done because it's just too much. But what I have found out was that if I keep everything on Sunday, that gives you the entire week based on your work schedule to get done and to work ahead. But if you're one of those who say, I'd really rather have a deadline, your deadline is Sunday. But if you want something more restrictive than that, then please let me know, and I'll go in and try to accommodate that. But what I try to do is give you maximum flexibility where everything is due by Sunday.
So, Dr. Ward, speaking of working ahead, is it possible to open up the quizzes, I guess, for lecture and chapter quizzes ahead of time instead of opening them up on Monday the week of?
If you would send me an email, I can accommodate some of that.
Okay.
But right now I have everything within the week open up on Monday at midnight and close on Sunday at 11:59 or 11:55, 11:59 p.m. And your quizzes are timed. Some of the tests in the quizzes, what you're going to find out is that they're multiple choice, true, false, fill in the blank. What I always do with the quizzes, I always go in and review the quizzes, and if I see a question that a lot of people are missing, I will go back and relook at that question. Sometimes I do boneheaded things, and what I think sounds like a good question, when it gets the light of day, it just didn't make sense. And when it does, when I find one like that, then I will go in there and correct that grade. So your initial grade may not be the final grade. And typically what I do is after I go through the review, I'll send out an email and let you know I've reviewed it so that you'll know. And I try to keep everything as current as I possibly can so that you know exactly where you are. Turnitin, hopefully everybody's had the opportunity to use Turnitin. I hope. Okay. So I've got Turnitin set up where, this is just an example. I've got Turnitin set up where the start date and the post date is the same date, which means that on Monday, May 14th, if you post something, then on Monday, May 14th, as soon as Turnitin goes out and does its analysis, it's going to come back and it's going to give you the originality report and the similarity index score. So you can see that immediately. And I have this set up where...
Do you want us to type the questions that we're responding to in the case studies? So I know sometimes that affects the total similarities.
You're right, Adam. Some of those, I believe I request you to leave the questions already in it. And I take that into consideration. And my counsel to you is this, is that your similarity index, if it was a generic paper that you just started writing, that somewhere less than around 5 to 7% would be a very good paper. For some of these papers, using the questions embedded into the template, then start writing your response, I would anticipate seeing a similarity index of, in somewhere around 25 to 35%. But my counsel is this: focus on your verbiage. And if that verbiage comes back that is highly, highly the same, then I have this set up where you can load up a paper every day if you want to. That's entirely up to you. You can load up one on Monday, get your similarity value, come back Tuesday, redo it, reload it again, reload it on Wednesday. Every time you reload a paper, it overwrites the one that's there and it's permanently deleted, and it never compares itself to the previous paper as long as we're within this class. The only one I'm going to grade is the one that you post by Sunday. So when I start grading, that's the one I'm looking for. So you have the flexibility to upload as many as you want. That makes sense?
And all these questions are found on Moodle, correct?
All the assignments that you're going to have to respond here, all the instructions are in Moodle.
Okay.
So just like I think this was the airline industry. This is where this thing gets a little busy. Here's that was the airline industry. Was it? Which one? Yeah, here it is. So when you call up these region assignments for the chapter.
Okay, so each part is part of the case. Okay.
Yeah, this gives you the instructions. It usually has some other embedded stuff in it. Here's the mini case questions that comes out of the textbooks. Answers question 1 and 2 on page 77, and you're going to upload your responses here.
Got it.
Okay. Same thing here with Starbucks. There was one in here that people have a tendency to miss. Yeah, here it is. When we do Goldman Sachs down in week 6, there's 3 questions. There's answer this first question, did John Paulson do a good job? And then answers question 3 and 4 on page 392. So just read, the devil's in the details, as you heard. So read the details. Okay, I've covered a lot. What questions?
I have a question about the quizzes.
Yes, sir.
So are the chapter quizzes and the lecture quizzes, do they overlap, or is it specifically chapters? The chapter quiz is strictly from the book and the lectures are strictly from the lecture, or is there any overlap between those?
Nick, they are specifically from the lectures and specifically from the chapters. However, you want to integrate your knowledge. So don't turn your brain off when you get ready to take one or the other. Integrate what you're learning. Any other question?
I have a question about the week 7 presentations.
Yes,
so
sir.
We'll get on the Zoom here and we'll present our 100 slide presentations. Is that how that works?
Yes, sir.
And then do we have to attend the other classmates or just our own team?
I would highly recommend you attend your classmates, your other classmates' presentations. My goal is to record those presentations just like we're doing here so that other people can review it. I'm not going to hold you accountable to try to address a test question that you have to go back and try to figure out where in that lecture it was at. However, that lecture may have, what you're going to find out is that even in your own project that you're going to put in data, then you're going to interpret that data, and that interpretation is going to be in your verbiage in your presentation. And understanding what you were saying is a right thing for a test question. So I'm going to recommend that you attend, but I'm also going to record as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Anybody?
Dr.
Yes, sir. Go
Dr.
ahead.
Ward, I also have a question on the final presentations. Will we be required to have like a references slide, or I don't think I saw one in the Harley Davidson presentation, but I just want to make sure that I'm not missing it.
That is a great question. And I'm going to say this, and I got this bad taste in my mouth when I say it, but from an academic standpoint, APA doesn't grant us the flexibility to not develop a presentation and not give credit where credit is due with citations and references and all that. However, this is not at this juncture, with this being your last class, with all this other writing, you have plenty of opportunity to demonstrate your knowledge of APA style of writing. In the presentation, what we're looking for is the content and the analysis of that content, the interpretation of that content, just like you would be doing if you were making a presentation in your workplace. You still want to know where that information came from, But in the workplace, when we said a reference and an in-text citation, we get strange looks. So I'm not going to hold you accountable to a strict adherence to APA citations and references in the PowerPoint.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Now, I will tell you that if you are doing, I would at least, if I have some critical information or if I'm making a direct quote or doing something, I would think, as you can see here, we just don't have a lot. But what we did do is with some of this information, we put in the source, just an abbreviation of where it came from. And you would do something very similar to that in your workplace. And that's perfectly fine. And that's acceptable for what we're trying to accomplish here. Again, this is not so much about APA citations per se, as it is about content and the analysis and interpretation of that content. Great question, though. I forgot to mention that. When we get back into week number 7, you're going to see another one of these. This is the Reader's Digest version of the bigger version that we covered earlier. That has a lot. The first version has a lot more content. I use this version as part of the grading, and as you can see here, I use this as I grade the presentation to making sure you're covering all these points if it's applicable to your case. And 99% of this stuff is going to be applicable to every one of your cases. But so you have that as well. And as you're building your PowerPoint, your project, I would have one or the other and making sure I'm touching all those points associated with that that case analysis. And this tool really is a tool that industry uses today to do exactly what we're doing, to do a strategic analysis, to make a determination, recommendation back to management, board of directors of the overall health of a company, where its vulnerabilities are at, what's its internal strengths, what's its market share, and potentially where that market is moving and why the company needs to be moving in that direction. And really it's about taking a macro level economic review of the industry as well as the company and how that company is doing in this industry segment and what new markets, if any, it needs to go into, what markets it's currently in that it may need to retreat from, or what new product developments it needs to be looking at. We already indicated that Harley-Davidson is coming out with a brand new motorcycle that's tailored to the younger generation. Ford is already announced they're getting away from the sedans and they're going to focus their production on crossover vehicles and trucks. They're still going to build the Mustang. They're going to build the Mustang, but every other vehicle, those sedans, they're stopping production. By 2020, if you want a Ford Taurus, so to speak, that may be the last year you'll be able to get one because they're moving away from that. And what they're indicating is that it's not that people don't want cars, is that they're making a strategic shift in their product, because the market is telling them that consumers want trucks and crossover vehicles. They're still selling sedans, but they're not their biggest sellers anymore. So they're moving away from it. And this is where you can use a tool just like this. You take this tool back with you to your workplace, and you could use this tool industry to do a company analysis. Good stuff.
Dr. Ward, one question. At the beginning of this meeting, you showed us the Excel spreadsheet that was generating the charts. And you mentioned adding data and taking data away to rebuild the formula. Is that spreadsheet going to be provided somewhere in Moodle? I don't see it right now.
I think the spreadsheet, that specific spreadsheet, I'm sure we wanted you to build your own to practice building it. I mean, I'm sure we don't want to make it too easy on you. I'm sure we want to challenge you and make you pull your hair out, and throw things against the wall and stuff like that. I'm saying all that in jest there, Matt. I'm trying to find it. I think it's down here in week 3. Yeah, here's the videos using the IMF to get some of this information. And I think this may be a different version, but let me cut to the chase. I will provide an example of one for Harley Davidson that you can adjust. And I think the one I'm going to provide you goes out to 2021. And I think Harley, and I think some of your value line stuff now. I believe this was the one, but I don't think that's one way to do it. But this is what you're talking about, Matt?
Yes, sir.
I will get you a copy of this and get it posted. Just bear in mind that some of your value line. Matt, what company are you working with? What company are you guys doing?
We've got Toyota.
Toyota. Okay, hold on one second. So when we did this one, I only took it out to 2001, from 2007 to 2021. Here's Toyota. Toyota now goes out to 2023. So probably what you'll have to do is to come in here and you're going to take some of the same data and you're going to put that same data in here, and you'll probably have to come in here and change these headers here. I can type today. Oh, come on. I thought I could type. Probably have to do something like this, Matt. And where this 2023 information is at in revenue here, in revenue for Toyota, it looks like they're projecting that at $295 billion is what they're projecting out in 2023. But you're going to take that $29.5 billion and you're just going to put it right here, and hopefully it does the calculations for you and it changes these two projections here for you.
Are you meaning to share your screen?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can see it.
You can't see it, Adam?
No, I can't.
You can't see my screen at all?
I mean, I see you. Okay, I see it now. Yeah, I got you.
Okay, so here's the value line information, the 29,500. And do you see this Excel spreadsheet, Adam? I will get that to you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You said you'll post it in week 3?
I will. I think what you will find there is that you will find some of the information on how to do that in week 3.
Okay.
Yeah. And we try to set the Moodle shell up where it gives you a little each week, so you're not completely overwhelmed per se. It may seem like we're trying to overwhelm you, but that was not the intent. I think it was week 3 and week 5. Let's see. Mostly week 3. But this is where, again, when you get to some of this information here, doing these financial trends, that financial trends, if I remember correctly, goes directly into building that Excel spreadsheet that Matt was asking about. So that's where you're going to find some of that information.
Okay.
Okay. But again, don't hesitate to get me involved and grant me the opportunity to provide assistance as well. But you'll find a lot of this information getting into the International Monetary Fund, looking at somehow for the doing the financial analysis, using the value line information, using Fred here. And I think someone asked a question earlier with reference to where do we find some of this other information, and I think you will find some of those URL links right here as well. And I think we've put for a lot of the economic data, World Trade Bank, cultural analysis from the CIA, Hofstede's, a whole host of things there. So you can see where some of this information is coming from as well. So use what you need, discard what you don't need. It's a lot of information here, but again, a lot of information that you could use not only for this course, but when you get back into your workplace as well.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So when you say presentation, are we actually speaking, or is the PowerPoint just running? Or
you'll be speaking on the PowerPoint.
okay.
Will we be speaking as a team or as individuals?
You typically will be speaking as an individual on that particular section. But when you're in that section, if someone asked you a question and it was something that the team may not have researched, or you may not have the answer, if someone else knows that answer because they saw it in their piece of it, then that's where the team can inject their input as well. It'll be doing the very same thing we're doing here.
So just to clarify, all of us have a portion to present. We're all on the same show, but we present individually, I guess, on our section, so to speak, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds exciting, doesn't it, Adam?
So,
it'll be fun. And this is where business is going to do video platforms just like we're using here, because it's a lot cheaper, as you can imagine, a lot more convenient, and you can accomplish very, very, very similar goals. Certainly nothing beats having a face-to-face meeting, but in the reality of the business world, leverage technology to your advantage. And that's exactly what we're going to do here in this class. Now, if you all want to come down to Mount Olive, we can do them there. I'm good with that. Just kidding.
Yeah.
What other questions do you have? I also had, I think we're upgrading the textbook in the fall, so I didn't go back and refresh some of these videos. So if you hear some of these videos where I said or Dr. Roney said, and if we go back to the Moodle shell and it's entirely different, follow the Moodle shell. But if you have a question, if there's any confusion in that, please let me know. In fact, I think some of these chapter videos, YouTube videos, I went through the textbook chapter by chapter and created a video. But I think in those videos, if I remember correctly, I was making comments about you'll learn this in Business 670, then you're going to apply it in Business 671. Yeah, so you can disregard those comments about Business 671 because that theory part and the practical application part, you're getting the full Monty in this class. But there are some chapter videos. You can let me know if there's any value or not. If they're not, I wouldn't waste my time reviewing them. But if they are of value, please let me know, and I'll come back and redo Chapter 9. I had to take Chapter 9 down because when I was doing that one, I forgot to pause, and I had a private conversation with someone else that was included in that video. So that was a little bit my mistake, so I had to take it down. But if you find them of value, let me know, and I'll go back and redo number 9. What else?
I have another question. With the many cases, do you have a page length or word count that you are requiring? Or
Oh, absolutely not. I don't count pages and I don't count words. I'm looking for content. I'm looking for your critical analysis. And in that critical analysis, direct quoting just tells me that you know how to direct quote. It doesn't tell me your critical thinking skills. I focus more on the content. So, and when I grade papers, I use rubrics as well. I use a lot of rubrics as part of my feedback, and I put more weight on the content. Obviously, I'm interested in your grammar, because I want to make sure that you're communicating well, because that's one of the 3 big things that businesses need today is people to think critically, who knows how to do teamwork, and who can communicate verbally as well as written. So I use a lot of rubrics just like this, and I will come in here and add those rubrics. I thought I could expand it. I will add not content, but I'll come in here and I will highlight where I think that paper fell out. And you can see that really it's really about the content and how thorough you are, more so than anything else. So no, I don't count pages and I don't count words.
For the case studies, do you want a reference page or a source page at the end of it too? Or does that not matter like the presentation?
For the cases, I would include a reference, writing APA style for the cases.
Okay.
Great questions. What else? All right, I'm not hearing anything. So moving forward, got a lot to accomplish. We have a lot to accomplish over the next 6 weeks. 7th week will be all presentations, doing the final discussion questions, and doing the final exam. I would again recommend that divide and conquer, meet often. A lot of folks use Google Docs to upload a common document so everybody can have access to it. I'll be glad to review anything that you grant me access to in your Google Docs, so please don't hesitate to do that. I would again recommend that you meet at least weekly, if not more often. Certainly include me into your meetings. I'll be glad to attend. Once you figure out how you want to meet, whether you want to use a Zoom platform or some other platform, please send me an email and I will get this link updated, and I'll keep it current so that everyone will know when the Zoom is not going to be available for you. But anytime it's available, you're certainly welcome to use it. You just let me know. And if you have any questions as we go forward, please don't hesitate to get in contact with me. All right, anything else?
Not right now.
Okay, all right, ladies and gentlemen, again, welcome to your last course. I know that it has been a lot of work, challenging at times to get here, but you're here at the end. Now, it's not time to let off the gas until week 7. Got to keep pressing forward. All right, then. Thank you so much, and I'll see you online. And I'll address again. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.